Good morning and welcome to the morning analysis on Tuesday, the 29th of June. 2 days left for this month. We have NFP this week. So, end of the month, NFP, it can be quite interesting to see what's going to happen. And we might get some really boring price action and not a lot more. I'm going to start off on the 1 hour. I'm just look at current price action and what I'm seeing. So, you'll notice what's different from this week's analysis that I'm sharing compared to last week. For those on YouTube that's watching, I now have just a cycle line, so each day, so I can see, okay, this is yesterday's movement price action. This will then be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And that's just easier to quickly identify, okay, that is yesterday's high and yesterday's low. And that's important also because we usually know that price often sweeps or reaches for previous day's highs or previous day's lows or previous day's highs. So that's something to keep in mind. So it's good to just mark those out on your charts and to know where they are, and that will just give you some added confluences, or just to read price action a bit clearer. So we can see we've got EU is currently trading in this range. We had this push towards the downside. We swept the previous day's, Sunday's lows over there. We swept the lows, then we pushed towards the upside, but we failed to follow through and we failed to make a higher high. We failed to break this high so that we can take a continuation trade higher. So I was looking initially for price to reach back into this cluster of this area, this zone of consolidation on the lower time frame, which is a 4-hour order block on the higher time frame. So I was looking for price to reach up into this area, but it's seeming to fail to make a higher high. So if it's failing to make a higher high and it's making not yet lower lows, then we're probably just still in a no man's land, a bit of consolidation. But that doesn't mean we can't take scalping trades on the lower time frame. So this is now the view. We have different points down here that can potentially be reached for. We have this low. We can just make it a round number as well. So we can make it 15. So that's a, they call it psychological levels, key levels, whatever. Not really bothered by it, but just like to see it at round levels, round numbers. So we could potentially reach for this area if we sweep the low. Also, 10, 20, 30 pip ranges below lows, a good point for targets. So if we just measure, we see from this low down to this, it's almost 20 pips. So it's in the range of 10 to 20 pips. So that's a good range for us to look to reach for price to reach into if we break this low. We'll probably see a reaction around here and then possibly a pullback as well. So that's for targets if we do move lower. If we move higher, then obviously the previous day's high is then my target that I'll be looking at to see how that reacts to around in this day. So I'm just going to draw this over. So we know that this was the previous day's high, previous day's low. Now that we have on the 1 hour, we've kind of mapped out what we're looking at. Direction wise, it's unclear because we're still moving within these two areas. We're kind of moving within, we're still moving within this range. We broke structure towards the downside. We came back to this 1 hour order block. So technically, I do think that possibly we are going more towards the downside. So if this was our last buy candle before the sell, so let's just call this supply just for sake of ease. We did come back up into it, rejected it, and started pushing towards the downside. And then in the Asian session, we saw price training towards the downside. So my prediction or my anticipation is for price to make a small pullback and then continue on lower towards this level down here. So I'm possibly looking for shorts today on EU. If we drop to the 50 minutes, we'll now quickly draw out our Asian session. So we have it from 2, so that is the Asian high that we have over there, and then obviously the Asian low in there as well. So you can just mark it like that, call it Asian high and Asian AL for Asian low. So now we have that marked out, and you can also see that we are still within this Asian range. So clearly all that I'm looking for now is price to around Frankfurt open or London open, maybe in a pullback phase. towards something on the left, and then just the continuation towards the downside. So that's the ideal scenario, the ideal setup that I'm looking for. If I look at the 55 minutes, you can identify this. You have this structure break over here, and then followed by well, originates from this area over here. So that then would be my ideal area for price to return to take a sell from this area. Something like this. I'll also share this in the chat as soon as I see it develop better, or if we see anything else happen, I'll update you guys. So that's the kind of the setup that I'm looking at. We have all of this trend line liquidity over here. Let's just have to fix this quickly. There's a set visibility. Just turn on minutes as well. Yeah, there we see the trend line liquidity there as well. So how this candle then reacts now, breaks, does it break, or is it just pulling back, and does it go up higher? We'll see now. Potentially there's some longs at play now. Potentially price will reach for this area as demand. Don't have it anymore. Let's just make it another color. Potentially price will reach for this area after didn't really break any the structure, just wicked above it. So depending on how you look at structure breaks, but we do have this low over there that is being swept now. So potentially price will make a run for this area and then move up higher, potentially into this area then where we would be then looking for sales. You could possibly look for a buy here as well, but it will be a lower probability trade for me because this was not a clean body break. If it was a body break, then definitely yes, I would have looked for buys in this area as well, but not yet. So this is kind of what I'm looking at now on EU on the 5 minute. Setting it up. I'm not trying to make it messy, I'm just trying to identify the key areas and then just work my way out towards the outside from that. Yes, so definitely looking for price to come back. This price coming back aligns with this order block that we have over here. I'm just marking at the bottom. Price could potentially come back into this wick area, fill some of this wick, and then push towards the downside. As you can see now, already price is just respecting this low, just to sweep that low. And let's see now how high price will come, and around Frankfurt or New York give us an entry. Frankfurt or London give us an entry in this area. So this is then the 5 minutes time frame, and I'm just adding an alert just to get my attention that if I'm maybe missing it somehow. So this is then EU, and then obviously, as I said before, targets would be first of all the Asian low, this area, and then possibly this area down here below. So we could see a decent move towards the downside today, since we are failing to make higher highs and failing to break this area. I doubt that we will go all the way up to the 4-hour order block. So I'm not seeing price coming back up into this area soon, not today at least. You can see price is filling this wick with pulling back. We might just see the continuation towards the downside. So this is then EU. Let's look at GEO quickly. Start on the 1 hour time frame. We're going to do the same thing. Repetition is key. That is the previous day's high. We drag it over towards this day. We want to see how it reacts around in today's price action. There we have yesterday's low, which is also the Asian low. Quite interesting. So price was just trending towards the downside. No real movement towards the upside, failing to break this high, failing to make a higher high, and just trending towards the downside. You can definitely see that GU is much more messy compared to EU's 1 hour price action. There's a bit more structure, a bit more clarity on EU. compared to GU. So this kind of makes it easier to identify that, okay, we'll most probably only going to focus on EU. But let's zoom in a bit. We have this area over here, which is then our supply area, the last 1 hour order block, and we have the structure break over there as well. We're really indicating that price broke structure. Now we're just looking for price to return possibly into this area, and then see price selling off down lower. You can also see that the 50-minute is the Asian range is a bit more consolidated, but also this looks very nice actually. We have some nice liquidity being built in here. So we have the liquidity, and then we have price, possibly this range that price can come back to and mitigate after this structure break towards the downside. So yes, we'll have to see Frankfurt open. Let's just look at our Asian high and low. Asian high is from 2, so that is actually exactly our Asian high, and then our Asian low is obviously then this low before 6. So those are the areas and the things I'm looking at. So for GU, it's pretty straightforward, into this area and then down. But because I know the nature of GU, that it's prone to sweep liquidity, it's prone to maybe take the liquidity above this high, and then after that only move towards the downside. So you could potentially see price come up into this area, sweep this high, and then move down, and we can maybe then find an entry pattern. So with GU, it's important to be patient a bit longer and wait for price to really give us that signal that it's going to move towards the downside. And that is very important. So just looking at the immediate price action, this is what I'm looking at. Let's quickly just have a look at EU again. But failing to move higher, but there's still time. If we just mark out, there is Frankfurt open. Where is it? It's London, but I'm just going to call it our Frankfurt open. So this pair does move a lot around that opening, and also, well, E not as much around the opening, but more around New York open. It does tend to move a bit more. So London open constantly. So these are 2 time areas that we're looking for price to reach into this area and then move towards the downside, and also with GU for price to move up. If price just moves towards the downside without going up first, if it for some reason just starts to trend violently towards the downside, we can then possibly look for a pullback into a newly created order block. This might be an order block created over there, and then see the sell towards the downside. So that is then possibly, if that doesn't hold, potentially look for something like this. If it breaks the structure again, then we're looking for that corrective pullback, and then looking for sells. I hope this makes sense. Hope you guys understood it. Yes, we'll have to see now, be patient and see what happens and what's provided. But we have our areas, we know what we're looking for, we know what we want to see happening. It's now only about being patient and waiting for it to play out. Hope you have a great day. See you all in the chats, and I'll update you as we go along, and have a great one. Bye.